be on. My name is Lemuel Pierre, and I work in the Division of Communications at the NO. With me is my colleague Wendy Johnson, who also works in the Division of Communications in the NO, and who would like to give you some guidance on the logistics of this training.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for joining this webinar. I just wanted to remind you to please mute your phones during the presentation. There will be a question and answer period afterwards, and everybody will be free to participate then. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Together with our two presenters today, we are hosting this last of 3 ADD trainings on the role and responsibilities of the Corps. This training is part of a comprehensive training on the role and responsibilities of the Corps to which the Wage and Hour Division has committed in the past few years. RAs, DRAs, DDs, and Corps have already been trained on the importance of this position in achieving the agency's mission. It's now your turn, ADDs. The agency's leadership wants everyone in the agency, especially its managers, to understand the importance and value of the Corps. Our two presenters today are Charlotta Williams, ADD in the New Orleans, Louisiana DO, and Francisco Ocampo, ADD of the Los Angeles, California DO. The presentation will be approximately 90 minutes. Charlotta will do the first part of the presentation, and Francisco will do the second part of the presentation. At the end of their presentations, we will take your questions. We will attempt to answer any questions you may have. If there's something we are not sure of, we will note the question or questions and get back to you with a response. Since most of you have extensive experience working with the Corps, we encourage all of you to participate in responding to the questions. Once we finish with these 3 training sessions this week, we will post a presentation on the Corps portal for all to see, and that will include the audios. You will also hear several testimonials from other ADDs on best practices in strategic planning, education and outreach, stakeholder engagement, media, and social media. We will also provide the RO's internal and external links to the Corps contact information flyer to be distributed to interested stakeholders. Well, let's begin now with 2 testimonials. The first is from Joseph Dougherty, ADD in the Pittsburgh DO, who will provide us some guidance on the transition. Then we will hear from Rick Pratt, ADD Chicago DO, who will talk to us about working with the Corps. Please listen.
Good morning. While no one can predict the future, we can be sure that change is coming with the new administration taking office on January 20th. One thing I know is that the Corps is a vital position within each of our offices, and leadership in the national office, regional office, and district office are committed to our Corps. The work they do with training, coordination, stakeholders and outreach, planning and enforcement support, media, tracking and reporting is an immense help to us as we work to fulfill the agency's mission to promote and achieve compliance with labor standards and enhance the welfare of the nation's workforce. In fact, our leadership had the opportunity to discuss the Corps' value with regard to outreach and stakeholder engagement with the President-elect's landing team. In our office, the work our Corps does is a great help and provides me more time to dedicate to my direct reports. I am sure their work will continue to aid all of us as we move forward. Thank you.
Since 2010, the Wage and Hour Division has been strategic about enforcement of the labor laws within our jurisdiction. So as a DO, we rely on the Corps for a variety of functions, such as planning and enforcement support, outreach, and media. As an ADD in my DO, I work closely with our Corps in these activities. Planning and enforcement. Planning and enforcement, I work together with the Corps to develop ideas for initiatives. For example, this past year we worked together to develop retail bakery and also pallet manufacturing repair companies. Another aspect of planning and enforcement is mapping. ADD should use their Corps to educate the investigative staff on using mapping techniques during their investigations. For example, develop any certain questions interview questions for the cases as they are being investigated. Also, a data analysis of mapping with the initiatives, because this will help the ADDs adjust strategies as applicable. And also, we'll work together to develop and identify the leads for enforcement actions. And last but not least, help develop and conduct just-in-time training prior to commencing strategic investigations. Another aspect is outreach. ADD should work together with the Corps to schedule events and coordinate the use of the DO resources during stakeholder events. For example, I usually conduct the government contract outreach events. Therefore, I work with the Corps to prepare the presenter for the event, create and manage the wizard events, and last but not least, document the events with pictures for the weekly enforcement reports, newsletters, or any other social media. So in summary, ADDs within DOs need to realize that the Corps is a valuable resource within your DO, and therefore ADDs should develop a continuous relationship with the Corps to assist them and ensure enforcement, outreach, and use of media activities are managed and reported efficiently and effectively. Thank you and have a good day.
And now I'm going to turn it over to Charlotta. Charlotta?
Good morning. Since the inception of the Corps position in fiscal year 2010, they have worked tirelessly to spread education to employers, employees, unions, and nonprofit organizations across the regions. The Corps have also been front and center in building strong collaborative relationships with state and sister agency partners, resulting in memorandums of understanding. Notably, the Corps within the Southwest region was instrumental in establishing MOUs within every state in the Southwest with HUD. The Corps position has evolved over the years from just conducting outreach presentations to playing a major role in assisting the district directors and the assistant district directors in developing and carrying out strategies in priority industries through assistance with SEEK planning and reporting, providing outreach with stakeholders, coordinating press releases, and sharing the human interest stories of our great work. Next slide, please. During today's discussion, you will hear from several ADDs who will provide examples of how the DO management teams effectively use their Corps to identify structural opportunities through effective analysis of evidence of violations in Wizard and leveraging stakeholders' resources, as we have found that our messaging efforts through social media can be a deterrent to employers from violating labor laws. Next slide, please. The New Orleans District Office was fortunate to be one of the first DOs to have a Corps. Since Hurricane Katrina in 2005, the New Orleans area experienced a significant increase in misclassification of workers as independent contractors. Even daycare workers were considered independent contractors. In fiscal year 2011, the New Orleans District Office decided to make an impact in the child care industry through effective outreach and the strategic use of enhanced enforcement tools. The Corps was instrumental in the DO taking proactive steps to educate stakeholders and provided training throughout the 5-year SEEK. The Corps helped leverage compliance in the child care industry by developing a relationship with the Chief of Staff of the Division of Early Childhood with the Louisiana Department, and by conducting extensive outreach presentations with child care associations. As a result, Operation Lullaby's findings revealed a substantial improvement in the child care industry. The monetary violation rate decreased from 68.65% in fiscal year 11 to 46% in fiscal year 15, an improvement of over 20%. Particularly telling was the decreased severity of violations cited from the outreach provided. In fiscal year 11, the average back wage amount per violation case was $2,285.81, while in fiscal year 15, the average back wage amount decreased to $855.38, which is a dramatic 62.5% decrease. Next slide, please. We as ADDs know firsthand how much time it takes to research leads and develop mapping guidance and analysis for SEEKs, time that we just do not have in our daily schedules. The Corps can be effective in identifying trends in your respective DOs in priority industries. For example, in fiscal year 15, the New Orleans District Office determined temporary help agencies in the oil and gas field often disguised overtime payments as per diem. The Corps' contributions was significant and reduced the workload of our management team by providing assistance in the following fiscal year 16 by coordinating the cross-regional temporary staffing initiative to address the staffing service industry's behavior of misclassifying portions of workers' earnings as per diem payments. Our Corps also helped direct the just-in-time training amongst the participating district offices in Houston, the Gulf Coast District Office, and the Jackson District Office. Our Corps has also issued several press releases documenting our success, and we encourage staff to present them to employers during initial conferences as we continue our directed efforts to elicit compliance within the industry. Next slide, please. Corps can be used to help identify structural opportunities within fishered industries and track evidence of violations for mid-year and end-of-year reporting. The New Orleans management team meets weekly with our Corps to help us keep track of the status of initiative cases and office production. He also runs business objects reports so he can send weekly updates to the staff listing the district office's goals and measures and have their individual contributions reflected in weekly reports. I want to thank you for this opportunity to present. At this time, you will hear from ADD Vilma Bell from the Jackson District Office and from ADD Edward Mulder from the Manchester District Office regarding best practices and their experiences with Corps and the strategic planning process.
The Jackson DO has been using strategic enforcement in all aspects of our investigations. For 2016, we planned investigations of several industries which we felt would allow us to reach out further than just an employer or two. One of our most successful has been our ag program. For the last couple of years, we have focused our efforts on two of Mississippi's largest ag industries, sweet potatoes and blueberries. As we conduct these investigations, we find that the aggers all communicate with each other and with their local associations. Even the farms we do not investigate have been asking for information on how to stay in compliance. So our Corps, Susan Denham, diligently meets with the Wayne County Blueberry Association. They are Mississippi's leading association for blueberry farmers, and they also function as a broker which farmers heavily rely on to sell their blueberries to companies nationwide. In fact, this association acts as a joint employer. They request more than 300 H-2A workers from ETA each year, which they then placed in 15 to 20 different farms in the local area. At least once a year, Susan is the guest speaker at an outreach event hosted by this association where many of the area farmers, not just the members of the association, but all farmers gather to obtain information regarding the laws that apply to them. This outreach has increased the compliance rate immensely. when the Jackson DO first started investigating Blueberry Farms, there were a wide array of violations, anywhere from disclosure to inbound transportation to notification issues. It's the Jackson DO's plan for FY 2017 to draft an agreement with this association. In the agreement, we plan to ask the association to require its members to agree to be in compliance with the law or risk losing their membership. The loss of this membership would mean that farmers would not be able to sell their crops quickly. This, we believe, is the leverage we need to make sure there is industry-wide compliance. Like blueberries we have also been investigating sweet potato farms for the last few years. Mississippi has about 150 farmers growing sweet potatoes on about 8,200 acres, which contributes about $19 million to the state's economy. This entire area where they grow sweet potatoes is known as the sweet potato capital of the world. Now, historically, sweet potato farmers use H-2A labor to harvest these potatoes, and we have found violations in many of this law's requirements. Just last year, more than $300,000 in back wages were found for more than 300 employees. And though compliance has improved throughout the years, new farmers go into business every year. FY 2017 saw a new group of sweet potato farmers we had never seen before. Also, we were able to obtain more information regarding the supply chain for these potatoes. So most of the farmers used 2 or 3 local brokers who then shipped the potatoes worldwide. The plan for 2017 included investigations of these new farmers in the fall, and then in the spring we're to meet with the largest broker in the area and see if we can formulate an agreement similar to the one with the Blueberry Association, wherein the broker would require the farmers not just to be in compliance with the law, but also if there are any issues which create back wages owed, agree to pay those back wages immediately. We believe by focusing both on the Blueberry Association and the sweet potato broker, we can cast a wider net and obtain broader compliance from a much larger group of farmers than we would ever be able to investigate given our limited resources. This is how we plan to in our agricultural enforcement planning for the Jackson DO during the upcoming FY 2017.
Hi, my name is Assistant District Director Ed Moda at the Northern New England District Office. I'm here to talk for a few minutes about how important our core is in our strategic planning process. Actually, much of our recent successes in strategic planning is because of the work of our core. He facilitates the planning process for our district office. He does a lot of coordinating. He communicates regularly with the district director, other DO managers and staff. He gathers input and feedback before, during, and after the rollout of each plan. He also prepares, coordinates, and submits all initiative-related plans and reports. He basically helps us maximize limited resources. He equips us and the investigators with useful information about particular industries and helps us develop a bigger picture strategy for the office. He also regularly meets with DO managers as well as other cores and other offices to gain insights on their strategic planning process. Research and mapping is also a big part of what the core does. He researches industries, collects and analyzes mapping information, provides insights and critical information to help the DO plan and also help us with our discussions. He helps us to understand business models and structures. He also monitors progress of each initiative and develops targeting strategies for both enforcement and outreach. He offers insight on different economic forces and relationships that are out there and sensitivities in the community that we may not already be aware of. Lastly, he does a lot of stakeholder engagement. He cultivates relationships with different stakeholders. He broadens the district office reach among workers and employers. He also determines what kind of outreach will be best for the success of a particular initiative. And he also maintains relationships with existing stakeholders and identifies new stakeholders that may be of interest in a particular industry or seek. He provides the district director with regular updates on outreach activities, such as attendance numbers, types of audience, also concerns from a particular group. He allows us to have the largest impact in the office by the work that he does with stakeholders. In closing, the work of our core is imperative in identifying the evidence of violations we need and the structural opportunity needed for a successful strategic plan. And our success would be much more difficult to achieve if it wasn't for the work of our core. Thank you for your time.
And now we're going to go to Francisco. Francisco?
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Lemuel, and thank you very much for having me on. I'd like to talk a little bit about the Corps and how we see the Corps here in the Los Angeles District Office. Essentially, we see the Corps as the person we consider to be our utility person, and this was very evident during our work with the recycling industry that we've been working on in the last year and a half, 2 years. During the initiation of our recycling program, our Corps was the person that was primarily responsible for engaging with the stakeholders and identifying the fact that there is a problem in the recycling industry. And when I talk about recycling, I'm basically talking about here in California where you take your cans or your plastic bottles and turn them in to get reimbursed. The customers do. And there's a program here where essentially the state of California, a program by the name of CalRecycle, reimburses those amounts to all of these different companies that reimburse that payment to the consumers. So in this sense, our Corps person was largely responsible for meeting with various stakeholders, scheduling meetings in which he got a fairly good understanding of the program itself and the employees that come under the program. We were able to provide training to various employees, stakeholders that were part or affiliated with the recycling industry. And also, we were able to sign an MOU with CalRecycle to help work with them in terms of combating the different wage problems that we found or have been finding here in the recycling industry. Really, as a result of all of his engagement and all of the work collaborations that he was doing, he was able to help identify these problems, bring it to the forefront of wage and hour, and also engage other district offices to look at the problems that are taking place in recycling and plan a plan of action down the road. So to better have an understanding and best practices for some of the education and outreach component, I'd like to address it over to Ann Bison, ADD out of Minneapolis, and also Jesse Bentecourt, ADD out of Miami.
Hello, my name is Ann Beisman. When we're identifying best practices for Corps regarding education and outreach, it's really important to communicate with the Corps directly to find out what's working well for them. And we discussed a lot of tasks that Corps perform on a regular basis. And so what I'd like to do is to take each of these tasks and identify one or two of the best practices that have been successful. In regard to stakeholders, a big key is just regularly updating the contact information of the stakeholders and touching base with the stakeholders by phone or email to ask about educational needs, inquire about other potential stakeholders, or find out what wage hour information the industry may be in need of. The Corps can also place important conference events by the stakeholders on their Outlook calendar and then make a point to contact the stakeholders when they think they are in the planning stages. The Corps could offer a breakout session or perhaps a wage hour presentation to the stakeholder at their event. For organizations or agencies that operate in multiple states or who are based in another state, the Corps could make contacts with their counterparts to coordinate education and outreach activities related to any multi-state stakeholder event or issue. In regard to tool that's been used that has been very successful is a standard document that can be sent to the sponsor, and that form will collect the who, what, when, where, and how of the event. And of course, if the Corps is not able to be the presenter at the event, they should still be coordinating and facilitating all the activities between the presenters and the sponsors. In addition, the Corps can also try to market the event where when the Corps is creating a wizard entry for the information is the key. So the Corps should be assigning all parties who will do work on the event, make sure the event information is complete and accurate, and also assign a manager to the event so that they can keep track of the events to which investigators are assigned if investigators are assigned to the event. It's key to have accurate and complete information because if someone else is the presenter, that person should be able to look in Wizard and get all the necessary information needed. An important activity post-event is to actually evaluate the success of the outreach, reviewing the evaluation forms and other things that you may be able to, in addition to speaking with any presenters who may have also been involved in the event. And of course, the Corps will want to send a thank you email or a note to the sponsors, and then also send any additional publications to disseminate to others for issues that may have been raised during the event. Corps can also be forming connections with stakeholders that have common objectives. They should be participating in multi-stakeholder meetings, but also one of the things to be aware of is potential stakeholders' agendas. And of course, doing their homework. And when it comes to documenting the event with pictures, one of the things that can be done is asking stakeholders to take the pictures of the Corps or the presenters, because they will do that. And just include the pictures and any other documentation that you have in the WEIR item whenever possible.
Good afternoon. My name is Jesse Betancourt. I've been an assistant district director in South Florida almost 5 years and was an investigator in the Boise area office for 24.5 years. I started here in Miami a couple of months after Harry Turner came on board as our Corps. I've had the opportunity to work closely right from the get-go with Harry, our district director Will Garnetz, and the rest of the management team and staff here in South Florida. Today I'm going to briefly cover some best practices when it comes to education and outreach. Besides all of our enforcement efforts, I've been involved in stakeholder engagement and coordination, education and outreach, strategic planning, working with the media, and in working with the Corps, reporting on all the work we have done throughout these past 5 years. Through all of our team's efforts, we've made valuable inroads with our stakeholders, including having signed AEUs with several foreign consulates, and recently celebrating the formation of the South Florida Justice and Equality in the Workplace program. This was an agreement that was signed by various stakeholders, federal partner agencies, including Wage and Hour, advocacy groups, and several foreign consulates located in South Florida. And it's been our Corps who has helped us to lead the way by making things happen and by developing a strong presence in the various communities our office serves, particularly in areas where there are vulnerable workers and where we need to be able to have the most impact. Our Corps says it best when he says, in South Florida, we could be out doing an education or outreach activity virtually every day. We have a large number of education and outreach events, and one of our best practices has always been involving our investigators and other staff in providing outreach and education to workers at these events. And while we directly participated in a large number of education and outreach activities that were aimed at educating the worker, we also recognize the need to be mindful of our resources. That is why another of our best practices that allowed us to multiply our efforts in education and in outreach has been to provide structured training to staff members that are working for stakeholders, such as our foreign consulates, advocacy groups, and our partner state and federal agencies. The organizations we have provided training to have been very receptive to our training and have taken a great deal of interest in knowing what we're all about. We believe that by training them on the laws we enforce, they are better able to serve their customers and can readily provide information to them about Wage and Hour when the need arises. We provide them with regulations and information they can readily hand out to their clients, as well as contact information for them to reach us whenever they have any questions that they cannot answer and where we would be much better suited to handle the matter. Since we have made a concerted effort to provide this training directly to stakeholders, we believe it has gone a long way in fostering interactive engagement with them and helped to establish trust with them and their staff, because they are the ones who deal directly with the workers and many times have established relationships with them. We all recognize that a vulnerable worker may not be willing to speak directly with Wage and Hour or any other federal agency for that matter, out of fear or lack of knowledge about what we do, but they may be more willing to speak to someone from a stakeholder that they are more familiar with or with a staff member who they have dealt with in the past and who they feel that they can trust. This has enabled stakeholders to become the bridge between our agency and the vulnerable worker. Because of this practice, we have stakeholders who have invited us to sit at the table with them and have introduced us to their clients and even provided space for us to meet with them informally to discuss any issues they may have in their workplace and where our agency can provide assistance. One of the main reasons this training in education and outreach has been successful is largely due to the efforts of our Corps. Harry has been in the forefront of the formation of the South Florida Justice and Equality in the Workplace program, working with consulates, other stakeholder groups, and our federal and state partner agencies. This working group is made up of members from Wage and Hour, OSHA, EEOC, WeCount, Florida Farm Workers Association, the Mexican Consulate, the Haitian Consulate, the Honduran Consulate, and among other consulates involved. The group has been following through with the development of an agency resource manual to be shared among all the members. A large part of this group's effort is in the area of education and outreach. This group meets on a monthly basis to discuss and work on issues that impact all workers in South Florida. With that, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to highlight the South Florida office and to provide you with our best practices in education and outreach.
Francisco?
Okay, thank you very much, Lemuel. While we like to believe here in the Los Angeles office that the investigators are the heart and soul of the office, we definitely see the Corps as being the eyes and ears of our office. And that, what I mean by that is that the Corps is really responsible for going out and engaging with various stakeholders to try to identify problems that we could look at and try to resolve in conjunction with working with them. It's very important that the Corps have the freedom to engage the various stakeholders that identify problems that we need to look at here in our area. The other issue that we like to see that our Corps does is that the Corps here in our office doesn't necessarily have a roadmap. In other words, we don't have, this is who you need to go to. Instead, this person, the Corps always comes to us and says, these are the different stakeholders that I'm meeting with, and these are the issues that they're identifying. So it's always important that management sit down and talk on a biweekly basis depending on our schedule, but it's important that we take the time to work with them and to listen to the issues that they've identified in their daily communications with the different stakeholders. One of the other things that our Corps has always done is once an issue is identified, then we make sure that the proper training is given to the different stakeholders, whether it be to the group itself, such as like a Mexican consulate, or to a recycling center, or whether it be to a group of employees, so that they have a better understanding of who we are. In this sense, it's important that the Corps establish that line of communication, that open line of communication with different stakeholders, and being able to build that trust. It's important for employees and various stakeholders to come forward. It's also important that the Corps have an open relationship, open communication with the different stakeholders that we're working with, so that the stakeholders fully engage the Corps in terms of identifying the issues and how we can go about trying to resolve them. One of the things that we also have been doing here through our recycling initiative is having the Corps go out and give results of our findings to the different stakeholders. In fact, just yesterday or the day before, we had some national results that have come out that have been communicated to us by the national office between different offices here in California as it relates to our findings in the recycling industry, which is really going to help us as we continue our work down the road with different with the recycling industry. So to better give us some examples of best practices, we're going to listen to Kathy Milton, ADD out of Salt Lake City, and also Alberto Raymond, ADD out of San Francisco.
Good afternoon. My name is Kathy Milton, and I'm one of 2 ADDs in the Salt Lake City District Office. The topics we're exploring during this training are foundational in establishing and utilizing the Corps position to further district office goals. The topic I will be speaking about today is the role of the Corps in establishing and maintaining stakeholder relationships or stakeholder engagement. Prior to 2014, the Salt Lake City District Office did not have the Corps position, and the job of stakeholder engagement fell to the management staff. As I'm sure others can attest, even the best laid plans give way to shifting priorities, and often your efforts are redirected to more immediate tasks, preventing stakeholder engagement from receiving the attention it deserves. Just prior to fiscal year 15, the Salt Lake City District Office was able to fill the Corps position for our office. The Corps was instrumental in establishing a more focused and strategic approach to stakeholder engagement. Corps-wide began documenting and contacting potential stakeholders to determine interest in outreach, education, and joint enforcement towards compliance. Our office has had several successes that resulted from the hard work and dedication of our Corps. Some of the more significant accomplishments are an MOU with the State of Wyoming's Labor Standards section that started with our Corps identifying the right point of contact and beginning the conversation. She also initiated the relationship with the Department of Workforce Services to approach the Utah legislature to change the statute so Wage and Hour could receive misclassification reports prepared by the Department of Workforce Services. Our Corps has also worked with local governments to secure informal agreements for compliance, such as an agreement with the Salt Lake County Licensing Division to provide the basic information fact sheet with each business license application. She has also continued to work identifying partnerships with governmental entities to identify free space and coordinate logistics for recurring monthly and quarterly employer workshops. Probably one of the best examples of stakeholder engagement in the Salt Lake City District Office is the work we've done in the construction industry. The Salt Lake City DO initiated pre-construction meetings in an effort to assist employers in understanding Davis-Bacon and the requirements for compliance. These pre-construction meetings have been very valuable in educating subcontractors of the Davis-Bacon requirements before work even begins on the project. The rapport of the pre-construction meeting is carried forward in establishing relationships in the industry. As we venture into other industries, such as hospitality and daycare, Corps Wild identifies the employer associations and holds similar discussions and outreach to better engage stakeholders. In fact, our name comes up when industries are looking for compliance assistance, and our Corps gets the call to conduct that outreach and education for a growing list of industries, such as the recent request by the Nursery and Landscaping Association in Utah. All of these things were able to be accomplished simply by opening the lines of communication and then following up to establish that relationship. In closing, our Corps has been at the forefront of these stakeholder engagement efforts. She takes the time and effort to engage and follow up with stakeholders, keeping these relationships active and strong. These types of relationships, this level of focus on stakeholder engagement, would not have occurred had it not been for the dedicated position of our Corps in the Salt Lake City District Office. Thank you for your time.
Our goal at the department and under the leadership of District Director Susana Blanco, the San Francisco District Office staff work hard in expanding opportunities for all people working in the U.S. To do that, SFDO ADDs, investigator staff, Corps, and stakeholders work together to accomplish the mission of the agency that ensures all at-risk workers in the country understand their rights. The SFDO, with jurisdiction of 15 coastal counties, has formed partnerships that include the signing of sharing letters with key stakeholders such as the AUSA, IRS, and various county district attorneys. We also have MOUs with the California Highway Patrol and several general consulates who, by working together, we ensure that businesses playing by the rules are not hurt by those found to be breaking the law. We're proud that in our recent MPLAIL signing in Napa, there were 15 stakeholders who signed the agreement in the fight against wage theft. We recognize that in order to achieve our ultimate goal, which is employer compliance, we have to change behaviors through our partnerships. SFDO ADDs and Corps are aligned in the common mission, which is about worker rights whose voices aren't heard. The SFDO Corps and ADDs have been working with key stakeholders in the healthcare and ag industry for years in order to exert pressure points for compliance. In the ag industry, for example, we have focused and engaged grower and shipper-packer associations about the importance of pricing studies and analysis to ensure workers harvesting crops are paid correctly. In the healthcare industry, one of the focal points of stakeholder engagement by the ADDs and Corps have involved training of regional center staff at regional centers that include WebEx participation. The takeaway here is that the Corps and ADDs need to work together, which is vital for a successful district office. Successful ADDs need the assistance of the Corps to ensure their cases and human interest pieces are highlighted through newsletter items and press releases. Successful Corps must seek the assistance from ADDs and their investigators if the Corps is going to accurately submit SEEK reporting. In closing, having an open dialogue amongst ADDs and Corps allows each position to fulfill the mission of the agency so that workers are paid fairly for their work.
Francisco?
So it's definitely, as you've been able to hear from the various speakers and presentations, it's definitely critical that the management team work in conjunction with the Corps to be able to highlight the various activities that take place in one's office. We've gone from an agency, in my view, where it was hush-hush, let's do our case, turn it in, and get on to the next one, to we're now actually telling our story. We're actually not just focused so much on the big dollar cases, but we're trying to be able to convey a message to the communities that we serve of the different issues that take place out there, from the garment worker to the recycling worker, the ag worker, and be able to talk about the different issues that the common person faces. And the Corps has been largely responsible for doing that. In my view, the Corps has definitely moved forward in telling the story of what Wage and Hour really does. As I said earlier, it's not just about the big dollars and cents, but it's about telling the struggles that the common person endures on an everyday basis. And the Corps has definitely been largely instrumental in being able to talk about the human interest story. In this office, had it not been for the one gentleman that was able to step up and talk about the issues concerning the recycling industry, and the fact that he was being intimidated against, and the fact that the Corps listened to what was being communicated and took that and brought it to our attention. Had that information never been shared, then who knows what would have happened in the recycling industry. But in my view, it's because of the work that the Corps person did that definitely highlighted the issues that we found in recycling, and not just recycling, but also in the garment industry. Recently, we just completed a major initiative in Southern California concerning the garment industry, and the Corps from the 3 offices in San Diego, West Covina, and Los Angeles were largely instrumental in bringing about the different activities as it relates to the garment initiative that was completed and the different stories that were told. Largely because of their efforts, we were able to get a number of different media as it relates to in the publications. I think the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, the LA Times, the different activities that took place and the different findings that we found were able to be highlighted in various media outlets. Now, I will be the first to admit that when the Corps first came about, I was very skeptical about what this person would be doing, because in my view, I kind of saw that they were going to be taking over some of my responsibilities. So initially, I was a little frustrated about it, but I can tell you this. All of the work that they're doing has definitely alleviated a lot of the work that the ADDs were doing, and I've made a 180-degree turn as to what the impact the Corps person can do, not just in his or her responsibilities, but in terms of getting the message out there through the media. It's been very, very critical to see the fact that, there's been activity in terms of Twitter. As it relates to the garment initiative, there was also postings on Facebook. And I mean, I don't necessarily have a Facebook page, but I have friends that will tell me that they saw something about Wage and Hour on Facebook, and I think that's very interesting, because had it not been posted there, who knows if they would have been informed of this situation that takes place within Wage and Hour. So to tell us a little bit more about the impact the Wage and Hour, the Corps has with media and social media, let's hear a little bit from Tess Castaleja, who is the ProLAD of the Dallas Regional Office.
As one of 2 planning review officers in the Southwest region, I have the distinct privilege of working with our Corps on a day-to-day basis. I really enjoy their passion for the work and for the mission, and I think that that's one of the reasons why they are such an important partner in getting our message out to the community. And I think all of you have probably experienced trying to issue a press release about a case and how that process comes about. But when you involve the Corps in that process and allow them to help with the drafting or help with the actual news brief or press release, that adds a different flavor. They're very good and very skilled at bringing in the human element to stories. And I think that's one of the best ways that we can engage. One of the things that I talk with our Corps in the Southwest about often is how our unique challenge is really to make policy personal. When we can make an investigation with X number of back wages and X number of workers due, more than that, when we can make that story about real people being impacted, then we can reach more people because it's personal, it's more relatable. And I think the Corps are one of the best suited in the agency to help us do that. They can see the person behind the story or behind the case and help us to bring that person out and to share that story. So they're very skilled in writing about the workers. They understand wage and hour, and they can kind of help us to find that balance. I think another way that the Corps are an important contributor to the development of tools like blogs, testimonials that will then is that they can be very connected to the goal of our initiatives. Being somebody who contributes and writes the SEEKs puts them in a unique perspective. They, from the get-go, understand what we're trying to accomplish through a given initiative, and they can be the ones to help us ensure that we push out those messages when needed. I think that their work is very valuable, and the more practice that we give them, the more opportunities we give them to help us to message, the more you'll see results, and the better, I think the better connected your initiatives will be to the message that's actually going out to the community. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the goal is impact. So the more we can share with the community what Wage and Hour is doing, how we understand the problems and what we're doing about the problems in the community in terms of compliance, then the more impact that we can actually achieve. So I want to encourage you to talk with your Corps and find out where their strengths lie, where their interests lie when it comes to the use of media and social media. And I think that brainstorming and that discussion will open up certainly pathways for you to find better opportunities to collaborate and to really get the most out of that position in your office.
Francisco?
Okay, so thank you very much. And so as you know, from the inception of what a Corps is or does, where I think at one point we had 5, we're now moving to where we're trying to have at least one Corps in every district office. And I think that's a great idea in terms of being able to tell our story. But with that comes the fact that the Corps definitely have a training plan in place, where before I think maybe there was shrugging of some shoulders as to what kind of training would take place. And I'm glad to see the fact that there seems to be a more concerted effort in terms of identifying the types of training that a Corps would need, in terms of the different manuals, different presentations, but more importantly, the fact that Corps themselves are given the opportunity to sit and meet and talk about what they do and the work that they bring to the table in their district office. I think that's important. It's also important that the fact that they now have a position description to talk about the role that they play and what they do. It's important that they have a good understanding of what the role is, and as I understand, the position description also came together as a result of the input that they had as it relates to their duties and responsibilities. So it's important that the Corps can continuously be given encouragement, that they be listened to and during the meetings, that they be given the opportunity to continue to go out into the communities that we serve, to be able to meet with stakeholders, to be able to identify problems that take place in the communities and how we can go about helping address some of those concerns. And when the Corps has the freedom to know that management is supportive of his or her responsibilities as it relates to going out and meeting with stakeholders, meeting with employees, I think all we're asking is for a better product that's going to come about in terms of building relationships with the communities that we serve. It's good to see that the Corps have some written guidance so that they can can turn to. That, as I understand, that they've gone through different training programs that have been put together, and a lot of this has been because of collaborative efforts between the different corps, the different pros, the Director of Public Relations, all of them coming together. I think it's important that they be given that opportunity to meet and discuss issues that come about in their office. And so in my view, you know, the training program for CORES has come a long way, and I'm sure it's going to continue to develop. I know there's been a lot of skepticism as to what's going to take place come after next week, but I believe that the CORES will continue to be an influential part of Wage and Hour, as we all will be. And so I'm glad to see that the CORES have thrived, that they've made an impact in not only in our office, but for Wage and Hour as a whole. So with that, does anybody have any questions as it relates to the CORE?
So, Francisco, can I just jump in here and talk about the few items that relate to the CORE that we have been finalizing here before this administration leaves? These are items that they want done before they leave, and one of those is the contact information flyer. It's on the portal already, and now it's not just the contact information, but on the other side, it contains a brief description of what they actually do. With this training, we now have completed training all the managers in the agency, and so everyone should be clear or have a clear vision of what the CORE role and responsibilities are. We have also finalized a prioritized additional training list, and we gauged the whole agency, the CORE, the pros, everybody on this, and so that's finalized. We're just waiting for the new people to tell us what's priority with them. And the last item is the onboarding process for new CORE and refresher courses for existing CORE. The executive leadership team accepted a long time ago that the going forth from the Kansas City training that the regional offices would be in charge of doing those trainings. We have already had the Southwest and the West regions do subsequent trainings for new CORE, and so we're using primarily the Southwest but also the West as a model for the ongoing onboarding process. And so we'll be putting details on the portal about how to go about doing these trainings. That information will be for everyone to see on the CORE portal. And having said that, let's open it up to questions. I know that all the ADDs in the participating here have a lot to ask or share with us some details, or if you don't have questions, please share experiences with your CORE, working with your CORE. No questions? Okay, I know Susan, you're on. Susan? Bacon? No? All right. Rafael, Rafael, are you on?
I'm here, Lemuel.
Yes, and so what we have with Rafael is he's a former CORE who is now an ADD. Have you started working with the CORE there now?
I actually have. So the CORE that took over my position here in West Covina, it's Priscilla Cruz.
Yes.
So we've been working with her specifically in starting our agriculture plans here in FY20 and CY 2017. She has been assisting us also in writing up the end of year report for agriculture. And we actually just had a meeting earlier today in relationship to Garment in providing education and outreach here in the Amane area, which is a suburb of Southern California. In addition to that, we talked with our Garment coordinator for the Western region, and we're going to go ahead and expand and look at what other areas in Southern California can we go out and assist not only contractors but manufacturers and at the same time employees. So, she's been engaged in many things since inception of her in the core position. I started my ADD position in October, so shortly thereafter, she became the core for the office. And right now she's finalizing some investigative work on her end, but she should be done with that shortly. But one of the things that I did want to mention to everybody is, personally, I believe that the core position, it assists the individual to learn about, new and different ways of getting the word out to the community. So you build and you learn a different skill set, than as an investigator, because again, you're dealing with, multiple industry type of reports. You're in communication not only with your local staff, with regional staff, with national staff, but also you learn how to, example, do media interviews, radio, television. So I believe it's just another position in wage and hour that not only going to benefit, the general public, but at the same time too employers and us as a whole, because every person that is in a core position, they bring something new to the position.
Thank you, Ralph.
You're welcome, Leo.
Others who would like to share their experiences working with your core? Or have any questions, issues? Does everyone understand the difference between what the role of the core is in terms of outreach events? Quite often, managers may think that the core is supposed to do the events. The only thing the core is supposed to do is to set up all the DO's events. So he or she has to know that these are taking place. Therefore, the collaboration and communication between the entire staff is very important, investigators including. And but in terms of doing, presenting or something like that, it's only a percentage of the events that the DD decides, well, I would like to do this presentation, or the core says, I'd like to do that one and everything. But basically setting them up and going to most or some with the presenters, if that's available. No one else wants to? Tuan, are you on?
Yes, I'm on.
Do you have a core in your office?
Yeah, we do, yes, Sheila.
To share some of your experiences?
She's real great in making the connections and keeping on top with the stakeholders, and I think it's real important to keep that contact current and fresh.
So it has made your job a little easier?
Yes.
Good. We like to hear that. Anybody else?
Hi, Emil. This is Jose Medina in San Diego, California.
Hi, Jose. How are you?
I'm doing well, Emil. Thank you. Thank you very much for the training. Really appreciate it. And Francisco, I think I'm with you. The cores are really invaluable, and they do a lot for the district office. I had a question or a comment, if you will, Emil.
Sure.
I enjoyed the training, and I'm wondering if either the recording or something else would be available for investigators. I think sometimes there's a misunderstanding from investigators exactly what the role of the core is in the district office.
That's an excellent question, Jose. I actually brought that up with managers here, and had we had more time, we would do it for the rest of the agency. So yes, so one of the things, all of this information, these presentations, everything we did with the DDs, the ADDs, the notes, everything will be on the portal, including the audios. And we encourage the DDs and the ADDs to tell the investigators, the staff, whenever they get time, to please go through some of these materials, especially if they don't have a lot of time, just one of these presentations and listen to the audios, because it will clear up a lot of the questions that they may have in terms of the functions of the core. So yes, all of this will be available on the portal itself, on the core portal.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions? No? All right, you've been very good. I thank very much our two presenters, Charlotta and Francisco, and all the other participants. I wish you a very nice evening and a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Camille. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.